Hey everyone, it's Andrzej on Software. Today is Thursday and I'm preparing my talk for the conference in Kiev, in Ukraine. The conference is called RubyC and they were nice enough to invite me, and tomorrow on Saturday I will have the first talk of the conference. And while preparing to this talk, I'm going to show to the people one example of something that I really like overall. So if you know me, you know that I like to think that developers could improve, we as developers could improve our sales skills. So being able to sell something. Also the indirect ways, like, being able to sell so that, people pay money for something, but also sell as in promote an idea, because selling an idea is also a selling process. And we in the Ruby community, those of us who live in the Ruby community, we probably know or should know the history of how Rails appeared on the market and how DHH introduced Rails. For those of you who don't know the history, DHH is the leader of Ruby on Rails, the founder, the creator, and he did start promoting this on Ruby on Rails in 2004. And in 2004, basically, there was no Ruby developers unless you were in Japan. So promoting a framework built on top of Ruby when there was no Ruby developers was really level hard of selling stuff. And I'm really under huge impression of what DHH, David Heinemeier Hansson, of what he did back then. And I'm not sure what exactly was his thought process, whether it was all planned or whether it was very spontaneous. I'm not sure. I did meet DHH in early 2005. I met him at a Java conference, and no one knew him back then. So I've had the whole evening with DHH, with drinking some beers and now talking about Ruby. But what he did was amazing in this way, that there was no Ruby developers. So in sales, you have the process of defining the target groups. And once you define who is your target group, for each target group you have to define a message. You want to send them a message. But the message should be a message which will be somehow attractive to this target group. So they need to understand the message, but also, what is important, this message should be about something that solves their problem. And this means that for every target group, you need to know what kind of problems they have, and you need to choose this subset of problems that your product or your idea, or in this case, this specific framework, solves. And in case of DHH and Ruby on Rails, he needs to be so good at it so that people not only start using framework, but they also quit their existing languages, quit their existing knowledge or experience with that programming language, and they switch to a new programming language overall. So switch, for example, from Java to Ruby. And I think from what I observed, DHH has chosen two target groups very specifically, and other were also targeted other groups. But I think to those two, it was the main message. And one of them was definitely Java people. And back then in 2004, I was quite a happy Java developer, which is, not an easy thing to admit when you're in the Ruby community. But I was quite a happy Java developer. I was 80% happy. And the things that I was not happy, I wasn't even aware that much. It's only, I think, DHH showed me or that I have a problem, which is, again, another level of selling. It's, a big, huge achievement by DHH. Because what DHH targeted in the Java people was this message. You guys in the Java world have a little bit overcomplicated, structures, and you rely on XML files, and this is a little bit ugly, and there is too much configuration and not really that much convention. So he promoted the idea of convention over configuration, and he, proposed to recommended this to us. But another thing he was very good at was he was saying, I remember this argument by DHH, and he was saying and he was right. He said, you need 1 week to start a web application back then in Java and to show Hello World to the people. And that was true, really. There was so much configuration happening that you actually needed 1 week to have everything set up so that you can finally show a hello world message. Maybe you will also have database connected, but it wasn't really that obvious. Now, obviously, it's no longer true in all the communities. There are, everything is easy and you can easily start new projects. But back then, that was really the thing that, made Rails shine among the other technologies. So that was a good choice. And for me, the argument about starting quickly was really great. And the evening when I started using Rails, I remember that evening because during one evening, I created 2 Rails applications. Obviously, they were super simple, but I did that. And, so he gave me this offer. I kind of verified that offer by trying this, and I bought into it. I was like, yes, this works. This is solving my problem. And it wasn't like one evening decision to drop my 5 years of experience of Java, but it was very close to that. And he also chose PHP community as a target, or at least part of that community. And he said, you are actually really good at starting very quickly with applications. So very often a PHP application can be built within 1 day, and that's a fantastic result. So you're great here. But what you're missing is some kind of structure of the application and some kind of convention. So while on Java he targeted like that the problem that there's too much structure, in PHP he actually used the opposite argument. In both cases he was right. In PHP there was a problem of the lack of structure. Every project looked different, and every project lacked some structure, and there was like too much coupling of different stuff. And Rails was a big improvement on that. So. And just to be precise here, I think DHH also targeted the Microsoft community. I'm not sure if it was called .NET community back then. I think it was Microsoft. Maybe he did. I'm not sure. But I was mostly from the Java community. But I also heard the PHP community. So I met DHH in 2005 at the JAU conference in Denmark. That was a Java conference. So he not only and that was. Once again, why it was a hard mode of selling. There was no Twitter, there was no GitHub, there was no the blogs were very rare, like super rare. There were some. I don't think if Hacker News existed at the time. I don't think so. So it was very difficult to promote, and he actually found it. His third technique of promoting Rails was through the very influencing people. So I learned about Rails from one of the pragmatic programmers. I think it was from Andy Hunt, but I'm not sure. And also he kind of convinced Martin Fowler. I think Martin Fowler had also like kind of highlighted the message about Rails. So, super difficult task of promoting Rails, a framework built on top of Ruby, to a non-existing Ruby community. So mostly he had to focus on the Java community, on PHP community. And when we now look at today's situation, when you look at what DHH has achieved, obviously now it's thanks to the whole community. But at the beginning, he started as one person, and he made this all happen. And I can sometimes disagree with DHH, and I often disagree with DHH about certain design decisions. But I have to give it to him that he was a brilliant salesman, and he made the Rails community happen. And I think we all a little bit owe to him. So thank you, DHH. And thanks to Ruby community, and thanks for listening.